Scientists have confirmed something that has never actually been directly observed before. A tectonic plate off the United States coast is tearing itself apart, and researchers have captured the clearest images ever taken of a subduction zone caught in the exact act of dying. So, let's get right into exactly what was found, what it means for earthquake risk in the Pacific Northwest, and why some of the same scientists behind this discovery are actually calling it good news rather than bad. Let's start with where this is happening and why it matters so much. Off the coast of Vancouver Island, in the northern reaches of the Cascadia subduction zone, the Juan de Fuca plate and the smaller Explorer plate have been slowly sliding beneath the much larger North American plate for millions of years, exactly the kind of process responsible for building the volcanoes and generating the powerful earthquakes that define the entire Pacific Northwest region. For decades, scientists have understood the broad strokes of how subduction zones form and how they behave while fully active. What has remained, genuinely mysterious, existing only in theory, is exactly how a subduction zone eventually ends, whether the descending plate simply tears loose all at once or gradually thins away into the surrounding mantle over time. Now, for the first time in recorded geologic history, scientists are directly witnessing the answer to that question. A new seismic reflection imaging survey, led by Brandon Schuck, a geophysicist at Louisiana State University, alongside Suzanne Carbot of Columbia University's Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory, produced detailed images that essentially peeled back the layers of Earth's crust like pages in a book, revealing a tectonic boundary genuinely in the midst of disintegrating. The findings were published in the journal Science Advances, and they settle a long-standing scientific question that had remained open for decades. Here is the genuinely significant part of what researchers actually found. Rather than breaking suddenly in one single catastrophic motion, as many scientists had previously theorized, the study confirmed that this breakup is happening in stages, a process researchers are calling piecewise termination. According to Schuck, this represents the first time scientists have a clear picture of a subduction zone caught in the act of dying, and rather than shutting down all at once, the plate is ripping apart piece by piece. Let's talk about the specific physical evidence researchers actually documented, because the detail here is genuinely remarkable. Using a technique that essentially functions like an ultrasound of the Earth's interior, combined with detailed historical earthquake records, the research team identified large tears slicing directly through the descending plate. Along one specific fault, researchers found that the slab has dropped by roughly 5 kilometers, more than 3 miles. Relative to the surrounding plate structure, clear physical evidence of an actual break rather than simply a gradual, continuous thinning process. According to Carbot, researchers have known for decades that subduction can stall when lighter, more buoyant sections of a plate arrive at the boundary and resist sinking the way denser sections do. But until this study, scientists had never had such a clear, direct picture of that exact process actually happening in real time. One of the most fascinating clues supporting this discovery came not from the seismic images themselves, but from what was conspicuously missing in the surrounding earthquake record. Along a 75-kilometer stretch of one particular tear, researchers found that some sections were still actively producing earthquakes, while other sections nearby had gone unusually quiet. According to the research team, that pattern makes physical sense once you understand the underlying mechanism. Once a piece of the plate has completely broken off and separated, it no longer produces earthquakes, simply because the surrounding rocks are no longer stuck together and grinding against each other the way they do while still connected and under active stress. In other words, the quiet sections of this fault are not evidence of stability. They are evidence that the breaking process in that specific location has already finished, while nearby, sections still actively tearing continue generating the seismic activity researchers can directly measure and track. The data behind this entire discovery came from the 2021 Cascadia Seismic Imaging Experiment, commonly referred to as CASI-21, conducted aboard the research vessel Marcus G. Langseth, and led by Carbot, alongside fellow Lamont researcher Anne Bessell. This kind of large-scale marine seismic survey requires substantial time, specialized equipment, and considerable expense to conduct, which is part of why this level of detailed imaging of an active subduction zone termination process had simply never been captured with this much clarity before. Now let's address directly why this discovery matters for earthquake risk specifically, since that connection is really at the heart of why this research has drawn so much public attention. The northern end of the Cascadia subduction zone, exactly where this tearing is occurring, is gradually shutting down piece by piece, with small fragments of the plate breaking off, while the remaining, still connected plate continues subducting normally until the next tear eventually occurs. This fragmentation process directly affects how stress gets distributed, underground across the region, which in turn has genuine implications for how earthquake risk is understood and modeled going forward. According to reporting on this research, some parts of the plate may already be detaching and forming smaller, independent segments, and these fragments can alter the way accumulated tectonic stress moves and concentrates beneath the surface, potentially influencing exactly how future earthquakes in this specific region behave. It is worth being genuinely careful and precise about what this discovery does and does not mean for the broader Cascadia earthquake hazard that residents across Washington, Oregon, and British Columbia have been hearing about for years. This tearing process is specifically occurring at the northern end of the subduction zone off Vancouver Island, representing the early stages of that particular segment's eventual extremely long-term shutdown, a process that unfolds across geological timescales far longer than any human lifetime. This is genuinely different from the broader, still fully active megathrust earthquake hazard associated with the main length of the Cascadia subduction zone, stretching down through Oregon and into Northern California, the same fault system capable of producing a magnitude 9 earthquake, last known to have ruptured in this way back in January of 1700. That said, this research does refine scientists' broader understanding of how stress accumulates and releases across the entire Cascadia system, which genuinely matters for improving earthquake hazard models, even for sections of the fault well removed from the specific tearing documented in this study. Understanding precisely how a subduction zone's stress distribution changes as different fragments detach and separate helps researchers build more accurate, more detailed models of how the entire connected fault system is likely to behave going forward, refining exactly the kind of hazard assessment work that informs building codes, emergency planning, and public safety messaging across the broader Pacific Northwest region. Let's talk about why some of the very same researchers behind this discovery have actually framed it using language considerably more measured, and in some cases genuinely more optimistic than the dramatic headlines this story has generated might suggest. According to Columbia University's own Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory, which published detailed coverage of this exact research, this process is not necessarily bad news, a notably different framing than the more alarmist coverage some outlets have chosen to use. That more measured perspective reflects an important scientific reality, that watching a subduction zone gradually terminate at its northern edge represents a genuinely valuable scientific opportunity to understand fundamental Earth processes better, rather than automatically translating into some kind of imminent, elevated danger for the people living across the broader region. It is also worth understanding why scientists find this discovery so significant from a purely fundamental, big-picture Earth science perspective, well beyond its specific implications for Pacific Northwest earthquake risk, according to Carbode. These new findings help researchers better understand the entire life cycle of the tectonic plates that shape the Earth more broadly, not just this one specific subduction zone off Vancouver Island. Subduction zones exist all around the world, forming and eventually terminating, over timescales spanning many millions of years, and scientists have historically had to reconstruct how that termination process actually works, using indirect evidence, like ancient, long-since terminated plate fragments preserved deep within the geological record. Having a live, directly observable example of a subduction zone genuinely caught in the act of ending gives researchers an unprecedented opportunity to test and refine theories that, until now, existed largely as informed speculation built from studying the aftermath of processes that finished millions of years before anyone was around to directly observe them. This discovery also helps explain certain ancient geological puzzles scientists have documented in the broader Pacific Northwest region for years without fully understanding their cause. According to researchers studying this connection, the piecewise termination process observed off Vancouver Island helps account for the existence of ancient, isolated plate fragments found scattered throughout the region, remnants left behind by exactly this kind of gradual, piece-by-piece breakup process occurring earlier in the subduction zone's much longer overall history, rather than representing some kind of anomaly or one-time unusual event. This year's discovery appears to capture an active, ongoing example of a process that has likely shaped this exact stretch of coastline repeatedly over an extended geological timescale, offering scientists a genuinely rare opportunity to watch history essentially repeat itself in real time using modern instrumentation. Let's address the question of timescale directly, since that context matters enormously for understanding how to think about a discovery like this one appropriately. The tearing process documented in this research is not something unfolding over days, months, or even a small number of years in any way that would be directly perceptible to anyone living in the region today. Subduction zone termination is a process that plays out across many thousands to potentially millions of years, meaning this discovery represents scientists capturing a genuinely rare snapshot of an extremely slow, ongoing geological process, rather than documenting some kind of sudden, accelerating collapse that residents of the Pacific Northwest need to prepare for on any kind of near-term timeline. So how should this discovery actually change how anyone living across the broader Cascadia region thinks about their own local earthquake risk? The honest answer is that it primarily represents a genuine scientific advance, rather than a new, additional source of immediate concern layered on top of existing, established hazard awareness. The main length of the Cascadia subduction zone, capable of producing the kind of magnitude 9 megathrust earthquake regional emergency planners have spent years preparing for, remains fully active and continues to be the primary well-documented seismic hazard facing the region, regardless of what is happening at the subduction zone's specific northern terminus off Vancouver Island. This new research refines and deepens scientific understanding of the broader system's behavior, which genuinely does improve the quality of ongoing hazard modeling efforts, but it does not represent some kind of new, previously unknown danger suddenly emerging that fundamentally changes the region's existing earthquake preparedness calculus. Let's bring this all together. Scientists using detailed seismic reflection imaging, combined with careful analysis of historical earthquake records, have captured the clearest evidence ever, documented of a subduction zone caught in the actual process of terminating, occurring at the northern end of the Cascadia subduction zone off the coast of Vancouver Island, where the Juan de Fuca and Explorer plates are gradually breaking apart from the North American plate in a piece-by-piece process. Researchers call piecewise termination, rather than through one single sudden catastrophic break. This discovery, led by researchers Brandon Schuck and Suzanne Carbot and published in the journal Science Advances, settles a long-standing scientific debate about exactly how subduction zones end, and offers genuinely valuable insight into stress distribution patterns that help refine broader earthquake hazard models across the entire Cascadia system. While this process does have real implications for understanding regional seismic behavior, researchers themselves have been careful to frame this discovery as a genuinely significant scientific advance rather than an imminent new threat, describing the finding as not necessarily bad news, since watching this extremely slow, geologically ancient process unfold in real time offers scientists an unprecedented opportunity to understand fundamental Earth processes that have historically only been reconstructed indirectly from evidence left behind by subduction zones that finished terminating millions of years ago. I will keep tracking this research closely as scientists continue studying exactly how this piecewise termination process is unfolding, along with any implications it may have for refining broader Cascadia earthquake hazard models, so make sure you are subscribed to the channel and have notifications turned on for whenever there is meaningful new research on this topic. Thank you all so much for watching today's video. For the first time in recorded scientific history, researchers are watching one of Earth's subduction zones actually die. And that is a genuinely remarkable thing to witness, whatever the headlines might make it sound like. I will see you in the next one.